A few years ago, my friend and I decided to take a weekend trip in the mountains. We planned to hike all day and stay the night in a remote cabin we had rented online. Everything went smoothly at first. The hike was beautiful, the air crisp, and by sunset we reached the cabin. It was old, tucked into a clearing like it hadn't been touched in years, but it matched the general location, so we figured it was the one. As soon as we stepped inside though, something felt off. The place was colder than outside, and there was this faint but undeniable smell, like something had rotted and dried into the wood. The weirdest part? The furniture. The listing showed a cozy little setup with bunk beds, a rug, even a wood-burning stove. But the inside of this place was barren, except for a single wooden chair sitting directly in the middle of the room, facing the door. My friend laughed it off, said maybe the photos were from a different angle or it had been cleared out. I didn't buy it, but it was too late to hike back down and there was no cell signal. We lit a fire, tried to ignore the unease crawling over our skin, and eventually tried to sleep. I don't know what time it was when I woke up, but everything was dark. Our fire had gone out. Then I heard it. Slow, deliberate footsteps on the wooden porch. I froze. My friend woke up when I grabbed his arm. We sat there listening. The steps stopped right outside the door. Then came a knock, just one, slow. Like whoever was out there knew we were awake. I told my friend to not move a muscle, and immediately after that there was another knock, just as slow. Then we heard the sound of the lock clicking. My stomach dropped. I grabbed my flashlight and flicked it toward the door. It was wide open. The chair that had been in the center of the room, gone. We didn't wait around to figure out what was happening. We grabbed our bags and ran, not even stopping to put on our boots properly. We made it to the main road hours later, scraped up, exhausted, and eventually we got picked up by a passing hunter. We told him about the cabin, where it was, what happened. He just stared at us and said, "There hasn't been a cabin up that trail in years. It burned down back in 2007. I used to be a forest ranger in Oregon, stationed at an old fire lookout tower deep in the Cascades. I liked the solitude, just me, the trees, and the quiet hum of nature. Most people think being alone in the woods is eerie, but for me, it was peaceful. Until that night in late October. The day had been overcast and cold, and by the time evening hit, a thick fog had started rolling in. Not unusual for the season, but this fog wasn't like anything I'd seen before. It came in heavy, suffocating, swallowing the forest whole until I couldn't even see the ground below the tower. The trees disappeared, the world shrank to a gray-white void, and everything went silent. Unnaturally silent. No wind, no animals, not even the rustle of leaves. It felt like the world had stopped. That's when I heard it, a voice. At first it was faint, like it was riding the fog itself. I couldn't make out the words, just a soft, whispery sound that seemed to drift in from nowhere. I leaned out the window scanning with my flashlight, but the beam only lit up the fog a few feet in front of me. Then I heard it again, clearer this time. It was a woman's voice and she was saying my name. I froze. No one was supposed to be out here. The trail leading to the tower had been closed for the season, and I hadn't radioed anyone about my shift. I tried the radio anyway, but it was just static. The voice came again, closer now, soft and calm, like she was standing just below me. "Come down, I need help," she said. I backed away from the window, every hair on my neck standing straight up. Something felt wrong, off in a way I couldn't explain. I stood in silence, gripping my flashlight, waiting for anything else. And then I heard footsteps on the stairs. Slow, steady, one after another, creaking on the old wood. My heart started pounding so loud I could hear it in my ears. I didn't move. The steps got closer until they stopped right outside the door. I held my breath. The knob didn't turn. No knock, just silence. After what felt like hours, I finally opened the door and shined my light down the steps. There was nothing there. The fog was so thick I couldn't see the bottom of the stairs. I stepped out cautiously, scanning around, but the moment I did, the smell hit me, like rotting leaves mixed with something foul and wet, like something had died and was left to fester in the mist. I circled the platform but found no one, no animals, no sign of any visitor. But I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. I went back inside and locked the door. That entire night I didn't sleep. I kept hearing faint whispers, soft scratching, and the occasional creak like someone was shifting their weight outside. By morning the fog still hadn't lifted, but the sounds had stopped. I finally opened the door again to check the stairs. That's when I saw the footprints. They were faint but definitely there, leading up the stairs, just one set. Bare feet, narrow and long, and they stopped right at the door. No prints going down, just up. I filed a report later, but I left most of it out. They'd say I was tired, overworked, maybe hallucinating. I don't blame them. It sounds crazy, even to me, but I know what I heard and know what I saw. I used to love hiking alone. Something about the solitude, the quiet, the feeling of being surrounded by nothing but trees. It was peaceful. It made the world feel distant and manageable. Like all the stress and chaos faded the deeper I went into the forest. I felt safe in that stillness, even comforted by it. At least, that's what I thought before I went on my last solo trip. It was supposed to be a 3-day camping trip deep in the Montana wilderness. Somewhere remote enough that I wouldn't run into anyone, but not so remote I couldn't get out if something went wrong. I'd done solo hikes before. I knew how to read a map, how to track the sun, how to follow trail markers and leave signs behind just in case. I didn't tell many people where I was going. I never had to before. The first day was perfect. Blue skies, crisp air, the sound of birds high above in the canopy. I made good time, found a spot near a small stream and set up camp. I cooked some instant rice, scribbled a few notes in my journal, and lay down under a sky so clear you could count the stars. It was the kind of night that reminded you how small you were. And for a while that thought was strangely comforting. The second day I decided to hike a little further out from camp, maybe find a spot to fish or just explore. That's when I noticed how still the forest felt. No birds, no wind, no buzzing insects, just silence. At first, I didn't think much of it. Maybe the weather was shifting. But by late afternoon, I was starting to feel uneasy, like I was being watched. I chalked it up to nerves and started heading back before sunset. That night, as I was cooking dinner, I heard it. Whistling. It wasn't loud, but it was deliberate. A tune, slow, haunting, made up of just 4 or 5 notes that repeated over and over. At first, I thought maybe it was another camper somewhere nearby. But I hadn't seen anyone for miles. I called out, "Hello?" Nothing. The whistling stopped. My skin prickled. I stood there for a while, holding the pot of half-cooked rice in my hands, just listening. The woods had gone back to that unnatural silence. I should have packed up and left right then, but I didn't. I told myself it was nothing. I forced down dinner, sat by the fire, and tried to read a bit, but my eyes kept darting to the tree line. Every time I thought I heard a sound, crunching, a twig snapping. I'd shine my flashlight, but there was never anything there. Eventually, I crawled into my tent, zipped it shut, and tried to sleep. That night, I woke up 3 times. Each time I was pulled out of sleep by the same thing. Footsteps circling my tent. Crunch, pause, crunch, pause. I held my breath, straining to listen. Heart hammering in my chest. I couldn't bring myself to unzip the tent. I didn't want to see what was out there. At some point, the steps stopped, and I must have dozed off again, because the next thing I remember was sunlight seeping through the nylon above me. I stepped outside, exhausted, only to feel my stomach twist into knots. There were footprints around my campsite. Not mine, and not human. They were long, narrow, like they'd been made by something walking on the balls of its feet, but the toes were all wrong. Too long, slightly curled, and clawed. I stared at them for a long time, trying to make sense of them. Then I packed. I didn't eat, I didn't write, didn't even take down the tent properly. I just shoved everything into my pack and started back toward the trailhead. I knew it would take me most of the day to reach my car, but I didn't care. I wanted out. And then I heard it again. The whistling. That same tune, but this time it was ahead of me. I turned in every direction, trying to pinpoint the source. The sound seemed to drift through the trees, bouncing around like it had no true direction. I moved forward, slowly at first, trying not to make noise, but the whistling moved too. One moment it was ahead, then to the left, then behind me, closer. I started walking faster, then jogging, then running. The sound kept pace with me. I was half sprinting, heart in my throat, lungs burning, when everything suddenly went silent again. No birds, no breeze, no whistling. Just a stillness that pressed in on me like a weight. I stopped to catch my breath, and that's when I saw it. At first, I thought it was just a shadow between the trees, but then it moved. It was tall, easily 7 feet, maybe more. Its limbs were too long, bending at odd angles like it didn't quite understand how human joints were supposed to work. Its skin was pale, almost translucent. And its face, God, its face. A wide, unnatural grin stretched across its head, too many teeth, and eyes that were just holes. Not dark eyes, empty ones. I don't remember dropping my pack. I don't remember turning around. All I remember is running. I didn't stop until I saw the road. I didn't stop to breathe until I was inside. Doors locked, hands shaking as I turned the key in the ignition. I drove for hours without stopping, until I was in a gas station parking lot somewhere I didn't even recognize. I didn't look in the rearview mirror once. I never went back. I never will.